We, the jury, in the above entitled action, find the defendant, Orenthal James Simpson, not guilty of the crime of murder.
Across the nation and around the world, virtually everyone watched as Judgment Day came swiftly for O.J. Simpson.
Guilty of murder in the first degree.
Madam Foreperson, by which theory or theories, deliberate premeditation and/or extreme atrocity or cruelty.
Extreme atrocity or cruelty.
Every parent's worst nightmare is to create a beautiful child just to have them taken away at the hands of another's negligence.
Fame carries dark shadows. Behind trophies and glory, these athletes hid secrets of greed, rage, and reckless choices. From Eric Naposki's cold-blooded betrayal to Donte Stallworth's fiery crash, their courtroom reactions will leave you shaken. Let's begin.
I am exposing myself, I'm exposing my family, I am exposing my children.
A wealthy businessman, a secret love affair, and a former NFL player who thought he could get away with murder. But the truth would surface years later, leading to one of California's most shocking courtroom moments. In December 1994, millionaire investor Bill McLaughlin was enjoying life in his luxury Newport Beach home. But behind the gates of his community, danger was closing in. His girlfriend, Nanette Johnston, had secretly been seeing someone else, former football player Eric Naposki. Together, the two began plotting a deadly plan, one driven by money and betrayal. That winter night, McLaughlin was shot multiple times inside his home. At first, the case went cold. Investigators had no weapon, no DNA, and no direct witnesses. For years, suspicion hung in the air, but without solid proof, an arrest was impossible. Then, 15 years later, a cold case detective uncovered new evidence tying Nanette and Eric to the murder. Overnight, a case long buried in silence erupted back to life. In May 2009, police arrested Naposki in Connecticut. He was charged with first-degree murder. The trial was explosive. Witnesses described how Nanette lured McLaughlin with promises of love while secretly plotting with Naposki. The couple hoped to walk away with millions in insurance money.
Well, today a jury disagreed with that and found Naposki guilty of murder for financial gain.
At the heart of it all was greed. Nanette stood to inherit more than $2.5 million from McLaughlin's life insurance and savings. For Naposki, it was the chance to share the wealth while eliminating the man who stood in his way. However, Naposki repeatedly denied committing the crime. He said,
If I was never there, and if I was never in the house, ever, how did I commit a crime?
In 2011, an Orange County jury found Eric Naposki guilty of first-degree murder. The following year, he received the maximum sentence, life in prison without parole. He displayed no emotion for his actions, just a cold, unsettling smile as the sentence was handed down. Nanette was also convicted and sentenced to life. Both would spend the rest of their lives behind bars. Someone from the victim's family said,
"That's a lie, Eric."
A man who had worked hard to build his fortune was betrayed most cruelly by the woman he trusted and the man she secretly loved. A millionaire's life was stolen for greed, but our next case takes darkness to another level, where a bodybuilder's marriage, once built on strength, ended in gunfire on Valentine's Day.
Killed the man that I loved the most in the world.
Valentine's Day, 1995. A night meant for love ended in tragedy. A champion bodybuilder was found wounded in his own home, and the woman behind the trigger was no stranger. She was his wife, Sally McNeil. This is the shocking story of how a marriage built on strength collapsed into conflict, and how one woman's claim of self-defense became one of the most controversial killing cases in bodybuilding history. Sally McNeil wasn't a stranger to hardship. Growing up in Pennsylvania, she lived in a home marked by mistreatment and chaos in her house. Later, she joined the Marines, rising to the rank of sergeant, but her temper often got her into trouble. In the late 1980s, she met Ray McNeil, a rising star in bodybuilding. The two shared dreams of fame, but their marriage quickly turned toxic. Sally accused Ray of treating her and her children unfairly, saying his actions caused her serious harm. His use of performance-enhancing substances only made his behavior worse. However, Ray had his own version. He told friends Sally was aggressive, jealous, and unpredictable. The couple's fights became the talk of their community, and yet they stayed together, trapped in a cycle of love and rage. On Valentine's Day 1995, in Oceanside, California, near San Diego, everything came crashing down. Sally dialed emergency services, her voice trembling, saying,
"Just shot my husband because he just beat me up."
When police arrived, they found Ray still alive but gravely wounded. He had been shot once in the abdomen and once in the face. Blood covered the living room. The children were in the apartment when it happened, terrified. At the hospital, doctors tried to save him, but Ray died 2 hours later. Police immediately turned to Sally. Her story was simple. She claimed Ray attacked her, and she grabbed the shotgun in self-defense. But investigators weren't convinced. The crime scene told a different story. Forensic evidence showed Sally shot Ray, left the room, reloaded her gun, and came back to fire again. Blood spatter on a nearby lamp didn't match her story of a struggle, and the angle of the shots raised questions. One appeared to have been fired while Ray was already down. Prosecutors argued that this wasn't self-defense, but rather revenge. A violent marriage had finally exploded, and Sally pulled the trigger twice to make sure Ray was dead. Why would Sally do it? Her defense team argued that years of mistreatment drove her to fear for her life. They said she suffered from battered woman syndrome. Her daughter even testified she heard Ray choking her mother through the door that night. But the prosecution pointed to a different motive: jealousy, rage, and a marriage falling apart. On that very Valentine's Day, Ray had plans with another woman. He was preparing to leave Sally behind, and they believed she snapped. In 1996, the jury delivered its verdict. Sally McNeil was guilty of second-degree murder. She was sentenced to 19 years to life in prison. However, she froze when the verdict was read. Her legal battle didn't end there. Appeals went up and down the courts for years, but her conviction stood. She served her sentence at the Central California Women's Facility. Then, in 2020, after nearly 25 years behind bars, Sally was granted parole. Today, she lives a private life, far away from the spotlight that once followed her every move. In an interview, she said,
I killed him because I was protecting myself. He was trying to kill me.
This case still divides people. Some see Sally as a battered wife who finally fought back. Others argue Sally is not the perfect victim.
Sally is not the perfect victim. Sometimes I was swayed to believe in her innocence.
Others believe she was a violent woman who planned her husband's murder. In the end, one fact remains unshakable. 2 children lost their father, and their lives were forever scarred. A love story gone dark, a family torn apart. But our next case isn't about romance, it's about recklessness. One night of speed, alcohol, and a fiery crash that left no survivors.
We have new surveillance footage you will only see on Channel 8, capturing the intense speed Henry Ruggs was driving just moments before that deadly crash.
When Henry Ruggs walked into the courtroom, he was no longer the NFL star with fame and fortune. He was a young man facing the family of the woman he killed in a fiery crash. One night of drinking and speeding at 156 miles per hour had taken the life of 23-year-old Tina Tintor. Now Ruggs stood in front of the judge, admitting guilt, apologizing, and wishing he could turn back time. But no apology could undo the tragedy. That night, Ruggs made a deadly choice. Instead of staying off the road, he got into his Corvette after drinking. Police later discovered he was driving at a shocking 156 miles per hour. Just seconds later, he slammed into the back of another car. Inside that car was 23-year-old Tina Tintor, and with her, the crash caused flames to spread instantly. Tina never made it out alive. The crash became headline news across the nation. Ruggs, who had been drafted by the Raiders only a year earlier, was suddenly at the center of a criminal investigation. Officers revealed his alcohol level was far above the legal limit. Investigators pieced together the evidence: speed, alcohol, impact, and there was no doubt. Ruggs' reckless actions had taken an innocent life. Hours after the crash, the Raiders released him from the team. The courtroom became the turning point. Ruggs stood before the judge and before Tina's grieving family. He said he never planned to drive that night. He said he wished he could turn back time. But no words could erase the horror of that night. He pleaded guilty to DUI resulting in death and misdemeanor manslaughter. There was no hidden plot, no plan, just reckless decisions fueled by alcohol, poor judgment, and speed. Ruggs was escaping something that night because of pressure, emotions, but the cost was unbearable. In 2023, the court sentenced him to 3 to 10 years in prison. At the time of sentencing, he felt guilty for his actions and apologized to the family of the victim, saying,
I apologize for the pain and suffering my actions the morning of November 2nd, 2021 have caused you, your family, and those who knew and loved Miss Tina and Max.
Meanwhile, Tina Tinter's family is left with a loss that no sentence can heal. Ruggs has since spoken publicly. He said he was sorry. He even dreams of returning to football someday, but apologies cannot bring back Tina. They cannot erase the pain of her family. Her family said,
Every parent's worst nightmare is to create a beautiful child just to have them taken away at the hands of another's negligence.
One choice behind the wheel ended a young woman's life. But our next case shows how an NFL star made the same mistake, with deadly consequences on a Miami morning.
Something that will live with me for the rest of my life. It's something that I'm going to have to tell my children about.
A star NFL wide receiver, a luxury car, a night of drinking. By the next morning, one man was dead, and Donte Stallworth's football career was destroyed forever. On March 14, 2009, just after sunrise, Stallworth was driving his black Bentley on the MacArthur Causeway in Miami Beach. He was speeding, going about 50 in a 40-mile zone. On the same road was Mario Reyes, a 59-year-old man walking home after finishing his overnight shift. He was simply trying to catch a bus. That morning, their lives collided. Literally. Stallworth struck Reyes with his car. Mario died instantly. When police arrived, Stallworth admitted he had been drinking the night before. His alcohol level was tested. It came back at 0.12, well above the legal limit. Witnesses said he had tried flashing his headlights to warn Mario, but it was too late. Stallworth was arrested, and the case quickly made national headlines.
Respectfully object to the modification. He's in a position now where he can...
On April 1st, 2009, prosecutors charged him with DUI manslaughter. He surrendered the next day and was released on bail. The once celebrated athlete now stood in a courtroom, facing years behind bars. The evidence was clear: speeding, alcohol, and a man killed on his way home. This was not a case of hate or rage. It was a case of reckless choices. A night of drinking, a decision to drive, and a man paid the ultimate price. Under a plea deal, Stallworth avoided a long prison sentence. Instead, he received 30 days in jail, 1,000 hours of community service, 2 years of community control, and 8 years of probation. At the time of sentencing, he said,
Though I cannot bring back Mr. Reyes or ease his family's pain, I can and will honor his memory by committing my time, my resources, and my voice to educating this community.
His driver's license was permanently suspended. He served just 24 days of his 30-day sentence before being released. The Reyes family also reached a private settlement with Stallworth to avoid a civil suit. For the family of Mario Reyes, no settlement could ever replace a husband and father. For Stallworth, his NFL career was shattered. The league suspended him for the entire 2009 season. A single decision erased years of hard work. But our next case isn't about money. It's about rage, a baseball star, and a bat that turned into a weapon of death.
Because the defendant is presumed to be innocent, he does not have to prove that he is not guilty.
This case is shocking. A young athlete with a bright future turned into a brutal killer. A man who once dreamed of making it big in Major League Baseball destroyed his own family with a bat that had his name on it. Brandon Martin, a first-round pick for the Tampa Bay Rays, was once seen as a rising star. But in 2015, everything changed. Instead of chasing baseball dreams, he left behind a trail of conflict that stunned California and the sports world. It all happened inside his family's home. His father, his uncle, and even a security worker were dreadfully beaten to death. The weapon? A baseball bat engraved with his last name. The very thing that once represented his future became the tool of destruction. When police learned what had happened, they launched a massive search. Martin didn't surrender. He ran. He jumped from a second-story window and tried to hide in a stranger's backyard. But a police dog took him down. ending the chase. During the investigation, disturbing details came out. Just days before the murders, Martin admitted to choking his mother, threatening her with scissors, and putting her in a headlock. He also confessed to punching his father. The warning signs were there, but no one could imagine the horror that was coming. Reports suggest Martin was struggling with psychiatric issues, but the reasons for the murders went far beyond a simple explanation. He turned his anger and instability on the very people who loved him most. The case proceeded to trial, and following testimony from his girlfriend, the prosecutor became aware of critical information. According to his girlfriend,
things just slowly started to really change in his temperament, his personality, his choices he made.
Later, prosecutors revealed that he was diagnosed with the mood disorder, and he was provided medication to treat that illness. So prosecutors even sought the death penalty. But in the end, Martin was sentenced to life in prison without parole. He will never walk free again.
At this time, the court will sentence the defendant on count 1, 2, and 3 to life without the possibility of parole.
This tragedy is haunting. A family wiped out. A career wasted. Brandon Martin went from a baseball prospect to a convicted killer. The next case shows how quickly fame can turn to infamy. Tammy Lynn Sitch once lit up arenas, and now she faces the consequences of a crime that took a life.
Tammy! Turn the car off!
My dad loved us with everything he had, and we miss him every day.
The daughter of 75-year-old Julian LaFrancis Lassiter, known as Fran, speaking out after the woman accused of ending his life by driving drunk.
She was once a wrestling icon, a WWE Hall of Famer known as Sunny. But years after her time in the spotlight, Tammy Lynn Sitch's life spiraled into a series of legal troubles, ultimately leading to a devastating crime that ended one life and changed hers forever.
Yeah, that's the caller.
What she has to say.
All right. You got your license on you, Tammy? What?
No, I don't.
You don't?
On March 25, 2022, in Daytona Beach, Florida, Sitch was driving under the influence when she crashed into another vehicle at a red light. The impact instantly killed 75-year-old Julian Lassiter, a man who had simply been in the wrong place at the wrong time. Authorities immediately suspected intoxication, and when Sitch's blood alcohol level was tested, she was found to be 3.5 times the legal limit. Even worse, she had a history of DUI-related arrests, making this a deadly pattern rather than an isolated mistake.
Oh God, my fucking fiance's. Look at this, a novel.
Well, don't worry about that right now. Just
No.
Yeah, that's the difference. So you could deal with that another day.
Sitch was arrested and charged with DUI manslaughter, along with multiple other counts, including driving with a suspended license. Prosecutors painted a picture of a reckless repeat offender who had ignored past warnings and continued putting others in danger.
What did she tell Detective Garcia?
The defendant told Detective Garcia that she was unaware that she had been involved in a crash.
In court, the reality of her actions hit hard. The prosecution played footage of the crash, showing just how avoidable the tragedy had been. The defense attempted to argue mitigating factors, citing her history of personal struggles, but the evidence was overwhelming.
Facts of this case are fairly egregious. She runs a red light just prior to this accident, almost causes another accident, slams into the back of this decedent, Mr. Lassiter, so hard that he hits the car in front of him.
The judge had little sympathy, and when it came time for sentencing, the courtroom held its breath.
Because this is Sunny Sitch today. Monday, actually. This was her walking into a courtroom to face a Florida judge and receive a 17-year prison sentence.
Tammy Lynn Sitch was sentenced to 17 years in prison, a harsh but expected punishment given her long history of DUI arrests. The judge made it clear this wasn't just about one mistake, but a repeated pattern of reckless behavior that finally cost someone their life.
When I sit alone thinking about what I did to the Lassiter family that tragic day, from a stupid decision, I feel the regret and remorse deep inside my soul.
Sitch broke down in court, apologizing and saying she never meant for this to happen. But for Julian Lassiter's family, her words meant little. His loved ones described their devastating loss, stating that nothing could bring him back, and that this tragedy could have been prevented if Sitch had learned from her past mistakes.
Every day since my dad has been taken from us has been incredibly difficult. I wish we had a different outcome today.
Even behind bars, Sitch has remained in the headlines, requesting a reduced sentence. But so far, the courts have denied every attempt. For the wrestling legend, once known as Sunny, her days of fame are long over. Our next case is one of the most infamous in American history. O.J. Simpson's murder trial captivated the world and divided it forever.
O.J. killed everybody in that driveway. Let's just, to hell with all this. O.J. killed both them people.
Simpson could not stay out of trouble.
Okay.
Simpson had an active social life and lots of friends. But on at least 4 occasions, cops were called to break up disputes between Simpson and his new girlfriend, Christy Prody.
O.J. Simpson was a sports legend, a Hollywood celebrity, and a household name. But in 1994, his reputation shattered overnight when he became the prime suspect in one of the most infamous murder cases in history.
A passerby discovered the victims on the floor, Brown Simpson at the foot of the courtyard stairs, and Goldman nearby, close to some vegetation. The murders would become one of the most notorious crimes in recent U.S. history.
On June 12, 1994, Nicole Brown Simpson and her friend Ron Goldman were brutally murdered outside Nicole's home in Brentwood, California. Nicole was stabbed multiple times, her throat slashed, and Ron was viciously attacked. The crime scene was gruesome. Investigators quickly turned to O.J., Nicole's ex-husband and former NFL star. Their marriage had been volatile, with multiple reports of Friends and family recalled O.J.'s obsessive behavior, his jealousy, and how he couldn't accept Nicole moving on. Just 2 years after their divorce in 1992, Nicole had started dating again, and O.J. wasn't handling it well. Prosecutors argued that he saw Nicole's new life as an insult, a final loss of control, and that rage boiled over on that fateful night. As evidence piled up, things took a bizarre turn. Instead of turning himself in, O.J. led police on a slow-speed chase across Los Angeles in his white Ford Bronco, a live, televised event watched by 95 million people. When he finally surrendered, the case became a spectacle. His bloody glove, shoe prints matching the crime scene, and history of violence all pointed to guilt. But his high-powered defense team flipped the trial into a battle of race, police corruption, and fame, shifting focus away from the brutal murders. After 11 months of trial, the jury delivered its verdict on October 3, 1995. Not guilty. Gasps echoed through the courtroom. Millions celebrated, while others were stunned, believing a killer had just walked free.
We, the jury, in the above entitled action, find the defendant, Orenthal James Simpson, not guilty of the crime of murder.
Across the nation and around the world, virtually everyone watched as Judgment Day came swiftly for O.J. Simpson.
Ladies and gentlemen of the jury, is this your verdict? So say you one, so say you all.
Years later, O.J. wouldn't stay out of trouble. In 2007, he was arrested again, this time for armed robbery and kidnapping in Las Vegas. And in 2008, he was sentenced to 33 years in prison, finally facing justice, but for an entirely different crime.
O.J. Simpson stood shackled and stone-faced as a Las Vegas judge sentenced him for a hotel armed robbery.
The first-degree kidnapping with use of a deadly weapon, a fixed term of 15 years, parole eligibility beginning after 5 years.
Nicole Brown Simpson's family sat in disbelief as O.J. walked free, unable to find closure. For them, this wasn't just about a high-profile case. It was about justice for Nicole and Ron.
I will forever be proud of my son and my family. Thank you.
The public remained divided. Some saw Simpson as a victim of racial bias in a legal system. Others believed he got away with murder. The case forever changed how America saw celebrity justice, proving that when fame, power, and legal strategy collide, the truth can get buried beneath the headlines. O.J. Simpson's trial was one of the most divisive in history, but the next case is just as shocking. A world-class athlete, once celebrated as an inspiration, fell from grace in the most unthinkable way.
In his own country, he is a superstar like no other.
He was the guy that defeated all the odds.
When he ran, he set the track on fire.
He wasn't just running to run, he was running to win.
For years, Oscar Pistorius was a global inspiration, a double amputee sprinter who defied the odds to compete against able-bodied athletes. The Blade Runner was a hero, a symbol of perseverance, until a single night shattered his legacy forever. In the early hours of Valentine's Day 2013, a series of gunshots rang out inside his Pretoria home. His girlfriend, Riva Steenkamp, was dead, and Pistorius? He claimed it was a terrible mistake. But as investigators dug deeper, the truth became harder to ignore.
Early Thursday morning, neighbors in his exclusive gated community heard commotion and gunshots.
At this stage, we can confirm that a young woman, a 30-year-old woman, did die on the scene.
Pistorius told police he had mistaken Riva for an intruder. He claimed he heard noises coming from the bathroom, panicked, and fired 4 shots through the locked door, only realizing afterward that Riva was inside.
Did Pistorius know who was behind the bathroom door as he unloaded his gun? Or was he simply a man trying to protect himself and the one he loved from an intruder?
But the evidence didn't add up. Neighbors reported hearing a woman screaming before the gunshots, suggesting a heated argument had taken place. Ballistics showed Riva had been crouching behind the toilet, not standing or approaching the door. And then there was the history of jealousy and control. Messages revealed arguments between the couple, with Riva admitting she was scared of him at times.
After you fired the first shot, did she scream?
Not my lady.
Are you sure?
Yes, my lady.
Would you have heard her?
I don't think I would have heard it. There was a gunshot that went off, my lady. My ears were ringing.
Was this truly a case of mistaken identity, or a crime of passion fueled by rage? The trial gripped the world. South Africa's most celebrated athlete was now on trial for murder, breaking down in tears as the courtroom replayed the sounds of Riva's final moments. His defense team pushed the narrative of fear and paranoia, arguing that Pistorius believed an intruder had entered his home, and that, as a man with disabilities, he felt vulnerable.
One of the world's most recognizable athletes on the planet right now arrived at court under a blanket. A visibly humbled Oscar Pistorius faced the cameras again to hear the main police investigating officer say he didn't believe his explanation.
But the prosecution fought back hard, painting Pistorius as reckless and prone to violent outbursts. Then came the shocking twist. He was convicted, but not for murder. In 2014, Pistorius was found guilty of culpable homicide, the South African equivalent of manslaughter, and sentenced to 5 years in prison.
In the result, the sentence that I impose on the accused for the murder dolus eventualis of the deceased, that is Riva Steenkamp, is 6 years imprisonment.
The world was stunned, but it wasn't over. The prosecution appealed, arguing the conviction was far too lenient. In 2015, the Supreme Court overturned the manslaughter verdict and convicted Pistorius of murder instead. His sentence was increased to 6 years, but even that was met with outrage. Finally, in 2017, after yet another appeal, the sentence was doubled to 13 years and 5 months, bringing an end to one of the most infamous trials in modern history.
A South African court more than doubled the prison sentence originally imposed on Paralympic gold medalist Oscar Pistorius.
This court determined that the respondent, Mr. Pistorius, should have been sentenced to 15 years imprisonment.
Pistorius served time in Kosi Mampuru II prison, reportedly leading a quiet and religious life behind bars. Then, in January 2024, he was granted parole after serving half his sentence, a decision that left Riva's family devastated. In court, Pistorius was visibly shaken during sentencing, his once dominant presence reduced to a broken man. Riva's family, however, sat in silent grief. No amount of time would bring her back. Her mother, June Steenkamp, later said, "We're the ones serving a life sentence." As Pistorius walked out of prison in 2024, the world was left with one haunting question. Was justice truly served? Our next case involves a football star with a multi-million-dollar career cut short by murder. Aaron Hernandez went from the New England Patriots to life behind bars.
With the firearm in his hand. Before he fired the gun, he was like, "What's up now?" And he started firing shots. He said to me, "Did I see that?" And I said no. He said, "I hit one in the head and one in the chest."
Aaron Hernandez was once a rising star in the NFL. Born in 1989 in Connecticut, he was a talented football player who played for the Florida Gators in college, and then for the New England Patriots. Everyone thought he was on the path to greatness, but behind the fame and glory, a darker story was unfolding. Despite his success on the field, Hernandez struggled with many personal problems. Growing up, he faced a tough childhood, dealing with family troubles, mistreatment, and trauma. As he grew older, he also had issues with substance use and anger. These struggles began to affect his life off the field in dangerous ways.
Sending Ethan to the house, telling them to be quiet.
In 2013, things took a serious turn. Hernandez was arrested and charged with the killing of Odin Lloyd, a semi-professional football player connected to Hernandez's fiance's family. The police launched a big investigation. Hernandez was released by the Patriots right after his arrest. While waiting for trial, he faced other charges as well, but was only convicted for Lloyd's murder.
Indicate that there was some encounter between the defendant and the victims in this case? Doesn't that almost knock out of the park all this nonsense about whether or not this could have happened in 9 minutes?
The trial showed the shocking side of Hernandez's life. The evidence convinced the jury of his guilt. In 2015, he was sentenced to life in prison without the chance of parole. This ended his promising football career and marked a sad fall from fame. The motive behind the killing seemed tied to jealousy and fear. Lloyd was dating Hernandez's fiance's sister, and tensions grew. Hernandez's troubled past and struggles with emotions may have also played a role in the tragedy.
Guilty of murder in the first degree.
Madam Foreperson, by which theory or theories?
In 2017, 5 days after being found not guilty of another double homicide case, Hernandez was found dead in his prison cell. Later, doctors diagnosed him with a brain condition called chronic traumatic encephalopathy, or CTE, caused by repeated head injuries in football. Some believe this condition may have affected his behavior. It's heartbreaking to see a life filled with so much promise end in such tragedy. His story reminds us to look more closely at mental health and the challenges that can hide beneath the surface. Even those who seem to have everything, fame, talent, and money, can face profound personal struggles. The actions of these athletes prove that fame and talent can't outrun the truth. And in the courtroom, their fates showed the world just how far fallen heroes can fall.